Y'all pray for this guy. Alan came to us 3.5 years ago, wasn't it? 3.5 years ago, and like all of us, he was a wreck. But he's about to tell you a story of how he came out of that, and today he's just a different person. That's the deal about recovery. If you have lived lives like he has, and like I have, and like many of us in this room, you don't have to stay that way. You don't have to stay there. There's hope on the other side, and God is on your side. We're on your side. God has sent a lot of people in this ministry to reach out to the people that are struggling in recovery. And there's no excuse for you not to get help. There's just not anymore. Now you can say, well, there's this big stigma. I don't want to come into red doors because somebody might see me. Well, okay, that's fine. We have telephones these days. You can call. Just get in touch with us. And it doesn't have to be us. We're not the only ones. But I encourage you, if you know someone who's struggling with this stuff, and it will kill them, it will kill them. It might not kill them tomorrow, but it's going to kill them. And they're going to die before they should. I promise you that. Yeah. So Alan, would you come out of me and start preaching? Alan, would you come on? Let's give Alan a great river welcome.
Hey everybody, I'm a little nervous. I'm trying to shake these nerves off real quick. Yeah, like Barry said, in October I was 3 years clean. That's the longest clean time I've ever had. I've battled with addiction since 17, 18 years old when I was in high school. It started in high school and it really picked up. My sister was murdered in 03. Mom, is that right? Right. 03. She was murdered in 03, and before we knew she was murdered, she went missing. It was a couple weeks that she went missing. So during that whole time, I was 17, 18 years old. I had no idea what was going on and how to deal with it. I was raised in church, but I never really dove into the Bible and knew about the personal relationship with Jesus Christ or anything like that. And so I just sort of, when we found out she was murdered, I bottled up all those emotions, man. I stuffed them inside. And being a teenager, I drank and partied over the weekend, so I knew alcohol was an outlet, and I used that some. But the real kicker to it was I was playing basketball one night, and hey man, how you doing? Good to see you. I was playing basketball one night, and I broke my foot, and obviously I got introduced to pain pills. So that's where it started. I took the first one, and I was like, man, that's where it's at. That's how I'm going to escape the pain. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm sort of an introvert. I don't really like talking or anything like that. Obviously, I'm nervous right now. So that's what I did. I just stuffed drugs into my system. Pills at the time and alcohol. Then I started dabbling in cocaine and stuff like that. That lasted for years, man. Just, I never could remember. Sorry, I get a little emotional too.
That's all right. It's okay, buddy.
I never said this, but never could really remember the last thing I said to my sister, and that sort of ate me up inside. And just everything with her murder and her missing, and the events surrounding what happened to her, I just could not get it out of my head. It consumed me, and missing my sister too. I just couldn't deal with it. So it was years, and I just, started taking drugs and stuff, and it got to the point to where I actually had to take them to wake up in the morning. I had an addiction, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. I'm having withdrawals and feeling like I have the flu, cold sweats. Y'all know what that feels like, and what the crap's going on. So I started finding a dealer, and I found one, and I got a relationship with him and started becoming friends with him and close and just buying drugs from him, and it started to escalate, and to the point to where I was stealing from my family. I was pawning everything that I owned. I had a house, but during that time, towards the my first rehab, before I got to my first rehab, I mean, my house was pretty much empty. Like, I pawned everything in it, TV sets and couches and everything. So my family, you know, Elaine, I think you came over and was just like, what's going on? And it just opened up and it's like, I'm addicted. I don't know I don't know what's going on, but I'm addicted to these drugs. I don't know how to get off of them. So I think y'all found me a place in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I'm not taking anything away from that place. I learned a lot of things in there, but it just wasn't Christ-centered. They tell you that your higher power could be a chair, literally. I mean, and obviously when I went in, I was raised Southern Baptist, so I you know, chose Jesus Christ. But when I went into that place, I knew nothing. I didn't know about therapy, and I didn't know about 12 steps. Not so I was learning all this stuff. And when I went into my therapy session at this place, I started having to open up. And this was years later after my sister passed away. And so I started having to open up and tell them these things. And I never dealt with it in the beginning. Like, I just bottled it up and drug it. So when I had to tell this stuff, it felt like she died yesterday. Like, it just all, it consumed me. And I did the same thing. I started finding other outlets to deal with it. Obviously, I was in rehab, so I didn't have drugs. So I did it with other relationships in that place. I had a guitar, so I was playing. And I pretty much treated it like a party atmosphere. I made friends, and we started just singing, playing guitar, and hanging out. We'd go to class, come back and grill. So that's how I dealt with it. I wouldn't think, I would go into therapy, talk about it, and then leave and not, you know, put it in other things. Well, it got so intense that it was right towards the end, and it got so intense that I needed a plan to get out of there. Like, I wanted back on, I needed something else to put into, like, I needed drugs. I wanted to get out of that place. I was 11 hours from home. It was literally a plane ride up there. So I had to get on a plane to go up there. So I came up with a plan to break my own foot. I knew I couldn't break my finger because, I mean, like, I'd still be there. I could walk to class. But if I broke my foot, they'd have to send me home. So that's what I did. I was walking away from everybody, and I had broke my left foot prior, so I knew it was the weaker one in my stupid mind. So I took it, and I just started breaking it. And I never heard it snap or anything, so it was hurting, but to me it wasn't good enough to send me home. So I just started jumping on it and twisting my ankle and just jumping on it. And I'm telling you this to tell you how sick I was, how much the devil was in my head. And this is tears of joy right here because, but God, I mean, and I got to the point I heard a snap, and when I heard a snap, I was like, that's it, that's gonna do it. So I had a pretty good walk, like a half a mile walk back to the rehab van that takes us back to the apartment. So the whole walk there, after I heard it snap, I just kept just leaning on it, just kept trying to break it. Well, I get there and like, I think I broke my foot. So they sent me to the ER and they said, yeah, you broke it, you tore ligaments and, you know, chip bones in your foot and all this kind of stuff. And 3 or 4 days later, they sent me home, and I'm sitting there. My plan was to get sent home and do drugs, and I'm sitting there looking at my foot going, dang, man, like, I'm sick, I'm twisted. Like, how did I let that happen, you know? So just the guilt in that in itself kept me clean for just a little bit. And a couple weeks, maybe a month or so. And then I got put in a cast and all that kind of stuff, and then a walking boot, and I started getting back on drugs again. The guilt and shame, you know, kept me clean. I'm like, but it wasn't Jesus Christ, you know, it wasn't the one and only Savior, Jesus Christ. And so I started getting back on drugs, and I was Pam and Greg Smith at City Limits hired me on when I had a walking boot. So I started working there and taking pills again, and it escalated. I still wasn't dealing with my problems. I wasn't reading my Bible. I wasn't talking to Jesus. I wasn't doing anything, and it just started escalating. So I was addicted again. I found out that I'm going through withdrawals again. I gotta take it just to wake up in the morning without you know, shivering or, you know, body tight and all that kind of stuff. And I got into, you know, toxic relationships that obviously were harmful to. I was reaching out for somebody to fix me, and that's what happened. I got to a relationship and wound up having a kid, and that's the biggest blessing in my life was Riker. And
Amen.
he turned 6, and just the glory of God, man. The reason why it's so emotional to me is because when he was born with transposition of the greater vessels. He had a backwards heart. He had to be taken to Blair Baston, and we lived in that waiting room for a few months. He like to have died. Before he was born, I was addicted, and I knew I had to go back to rehab, so I did. I went back to, I'm sort of having to backtrack just a little bit, I apologize, but I had to go back to rehab when I found out she was pregnant to get clean, because I knew I was supposed to have a son, so I did, and went through that rehab, and I got out, and my son was born. That's the longest clean time I've had prior to this, which was 1.5 years, because his complications kept me clean. Not Jesus Christ, not anything, it was just, he almost died, and when he got sent home, it was still complications. Like, we still had to cater to his knee. He was crying, he had colic and acid reflux along with the heart defect, and so that's why I stayed clean that long, was through him, and the goodness and glory of God. What I was saying just a second ago is that he was born on the day my sister was murdered 11 years prior. To me, that's just monumental, because I used that day, that month, for self-pity, to just do drugs, and like, poor pitiful me, like, and then God's like, showing me that he's right there. He's like, look, I'm gonna give you this son, and I seen it, and I'm like, during that whole time, I'm like, thank you, God, that's only can be from God, but I truly didn't like grasp it like I do now, because I mean, he's the beauty of the ashes scripture in Jeremiah, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's just like I used to use that as just self-pity, and now he gave me this beautiful son. On that day, praise God. And so when we got him home and he was clean, I was clean, and he was okay. He started to get to where we were sending him to daycare, and I was going to work. Well, at this time, I had a job at a warehouse. I know a lot of y'all probably know. It was NHC warehouse, and I got a job there, low man on the totem pole. So I started working there and formed a drug addiction, because the relationship I was in was toxic. I shouldn't have ever been in it, and then the problems with, that I never dealt with my sister's murder or death, or stealing from my family, the guilt and the shame of that, pawning stuff. I mean, you name it, it would just pile up on me again. And so I started doing drugs again. And this time it hit like a ton of bricks. I was started doing meth and heroin. For a while it was back on pills, and then I started to do cocaine a little bit, and then meth and heroin came into the picture. And that came into the picture when it was over with. And so I worked my way up from that job to a management position, to where I was actually managing the whole warehouse. So when I got that position, I started making relationships with my customers, and I was to the point to where I was addicted again. I was just consumed with my own addiction. I couldn't wake up in the morning without having something to get me up in the morning. Well, one day when I went to work, I was going through withdrawals. I felt like crap. And I'm going up in there trying to manage this warehouse and having customers come in. Well, I had probably 15 or 20 regular customers that I formed a relationship with, that we had each other's cell phone numbers. I knew where they lived and stuff. So this one guy come in, and he's like, asking if we do liquidation sales. And I'm sitting here withered, like I'm going through these horrible withdrawals, and I'm thinking, a light bulb went off in my head. And in my mind, I'm thinking, God, thank you, man, this is what I need. But obviously it was the devil. And Y'all know as well as I do, the devil can hide himself to be God.
Yeah.
But
He's
and you
right.
don't know that unless you're walking in a
That's right.
close relationship with you.
That's right, Al. That's right,
Praise
brother.
God, man.
That's right.
But at that time, I wasn't walking with them, and I couldn't see it. And I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to do. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm just going to go in the back, pick out a part that's been there 3 years that we ain't sold in 3 years, get it and sell it to them, buy my drugs, and just get clean myself, which I've tried tons of times. That never works. And so that's what I did. I sold it to them. I said, yeah, man, I got something back here. Sold it to them, went and bought drugs, and did every single bit of that before I even left work. Like, my plan was to sit there and taper it off to where I could get clean myself, because I didn't want to tell my family anymore. I didn't want that again. Like, I failed so many times before that. I got on Suboxone, I did, which is the devil in itself, and then I got into outpatient rehabs. I tried all that stuff. So to this point, I'm like, I got to do it, but I can't let anybody else know. So that lasted for a few years. I mean, it got to the point to where I was taking more. I needed more money. One part here or there wasn't working. So I mean, I literally cleaned. I mean, it is a huge warehouse, and they had tons of parts. So in my mind, like, they're not going to miss this. I'm going to replace it, but I never did. I never could get clean enough to be like, put the money back type thing, or buy the part or whatever. So it just graduated to a mess. And
Yeah.
a few years later, I get called into their office, and I knew that what was going to happen. I knew that I was caught. I knew that I'm facing prison time, and so when I went in there to that office, they shut the door, and it was like 8 of them around the table, and they started questioning me and drilling me. And in that split moment, I said, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I just need to get out of here so I can kill myself. And prior to that, I had suicidal thoughts and tendencies. Like, I had a gun to my head at one time, but I was so high I couldn't pull the trigger. I woke up the next day and had the gun laying beside me. I'd park on the railroad track, just being like, just please, just a train just come and hit me. Or like, I'd be driving at 2 o'clock in the morning hoping that a drunk driver would come and hit me head on. I couldn't kill myself, but I had those thoughts that I wanted to die. I wanted something to take me out. And that day, it wasn't a thought, man. It was an action. I mean, I'm gonna kill myself. And my plan and my manipulative mind come up with a way to get out of that place. I was answering their questions and stuff. And during that time, I was going through withdrawals. I looked like death. I mean, I looked like I was probably pale-faced and shaking and looked like I had the flu. So I told them, I said, I need to leave this place and go to Walmart and pick up my prescription. It was first thing in the morning. I said, I need to go pick up my prescription at Walmart. And they were like, no, you can't leave. You got to stay here. We got a few more questions we need to ask you. And I just kept, I got to go. Just let me go get my medicine and I'll come back. And they're like, well, you go with them. They told somebody to go with me. And I'm like, crap. Like, and in my mind, I didn't really know how I was going to kill myself just then, but I knew I couldn't do it on the road because he's going to be with me. So I'm like, crap. So I used that time to think more. So NHC is like right there where Dollar Tree and stuff is. So it's not very far to Walmart. So I go up into Walmart, park, and this guy's with me, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm just gonna go up there and say, hey, I need a prescription and Alan Davis, and I'm like, well, it's not there. I didn't really think about that. I just kept on going, and this is where God comes into Elena. When I walked into Walmart, and in my mind, I'm gonna kill myself. I just need to get away. Elena comes walking out of the front door. The guy's like, stop, man, like, what are you doing? Like, and I hugged her right there.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, man, that's gonna be the last time that I see her. And she's gonna have to live with that. Knowing that. And in my selfish mind, I didn't care, like I just hugged her and went on, and I went on inside there, knowing that they've already lost Sister Mandy, I mean, you know, I'm fixing to do that to my family again. So I walk up to the counter, and I'm like, I need to pick up a prescription for Alan Davis, and they're like, we don't have it here. And I'm like, I call the sound, I'm like, oh man, are you kidding me? You don't have that there? Like, I'm trying to make it out like it's their fault, and I didn't screw up. I turned back to him, I said, man, I don't know, I need to go to my doctor. He's in Union. I don't know, I just said Union, I feel like it's Philadelphia, he wouldn't go with me. He said, well, I don't know, man. I don't know. He said, look, I need to go see my doctor because look at me, man, I'm sick, I need to get this medicine. And he's like, I don't know, man, let's just take you back up to the office. I'm like, crap. So we drive up to the office and we walk in the door, and they're all sitting there, and he's telling them this story about, you know, they didn't have his medicine, he needs to go get it. And they're like, no, we're just gonna call somebody up here to pick you up. And I just burst out and say, I need to go. I need to get out of here. In my mind, I gotta kill myself. But to them, I can't say that. I need to get out of this place. And there's this one guy that spoke up and said, it's okay, just let him go, he'll be back. And in my mind, just like my sister, I'm thinking, he's gonna regret that decision the rest of his life. Like in my mind, I'm thinking that's gonna ruin him. You know, he's gonna think he could have stopped it.
Yeah.
But he spoke up, and I'm glad he did. Because when he did, I left that place, and my plan was to get everything imaginable, any kind of pill bottle I could find that would slow down my heart, I would get, and that's exactly what I did. I went, and I think it was like 3 or 4 pill bottles, and then a whole bottle of Phenergan I took. And I took so much, I had a gallon tea pitcher that I fed the dogs with, that I'd scoop dog food with, and I just filled it up with water, and I had my pills, and I was just driving down the road. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove down the road, just popping pills and drinking the water. The whole water was gone. I couldn't even ingest anymore. Like I couldn't even take anymore. And I pulled up at the edge of the woods and parked my truck. And I wrote a suicide note, and I laid all my stuff out on the center console. And I was gonna walk to the edge of the woods and just wait to die, wait for my heart to stop. And then again, my sick, twisted mind, I didn't want to shoot myself in the head, I didn't want to hang myself, I didn't want my family to find me because they had already lost a kid. Like, I didn't want them to see that. So my idea was to park in the edge of the woods and walk, that way the cops would find me. You know, they'd report me missing, and they'd see my truck and be like, oh, wait a second, this is his truck, so let's search the area, and they'd find me dead down there. That was my plan. So that's what I did, and I wanna read my suicide note. I don't think I've ever read it out loud, but I'm gonna read it exactly how I had wrote it. I want to apologize. The pain I inflict living seems to be more abundant than the pain I will bring upon dead. My life continues to hurt everyone around me. This way my life can end. The hurt and pain I cause is ongoing and will finally stop. I am selfish and so deep in and then it stopped. I didn't complete that. And then I skip down and I say, I can't get a moment's peace to clear these demons out of my head. And it seems as though I'll never be able to fight these demons and get rid of them because of all the pain and torment upon my life. Self-pity, man. I wish I could be there for my son to show him how much I love him and how much this life has to offer, if not to make the same mistakes I did. I'm sorry, I love everybody. Please give Riker a good life and raise him to know that I loved him. I'm sorry to my family. I love y'all so much. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And I left it open on my truck so they would see it. And I walked in the edge of the woods and I laid up under that bridge. And I'm like, oh man, this is it. Like I feel my heart like slow down. Like I just felt like it was coming. I'm like, oh, okay, well this ain't bad. And from that point forward, it's a little hazy. I remember in and outs of it and things that my family was telling me. But somehow I wound up back at my mom's house. I have no idea how. Like, there's no way. I walked back to my truck, got in my truck. Mama said she called me or texted me or something, and I just wasn't making any sense. I was talking about going and getting some sheet metal or something, and like my text messages were just like my son was writing them, like they didn't make any sense. I wound up back at Mama's house, and she was at work at the time. I believe Elena came up, and I remember in and outs of that. It was weird because it was like an out-of-body experience. I know that sounds cliche or whatever, but like, I don't remember it being me. I remember it sort of being like an observer looking at it. And I remember Elena telling me, you took something. I'm like, no, all I did was 2 Phenergan. I just took 2 Phenergan, so that's why I'm loopy. Because my mind, 1 Phenergan makes you tired, you know, like anybody would be tired, so I just said I took 2 of them. Well, during this whole time, Mama comes back up, and they're like, they know something's wrong with me. They know that something's not right. So they lay me in the bed, or I lay in the bed, and they start praying over me. Mama starts praying over the water that I'm drinking. Mama starts calling her friends and Brother Dwight, Mr. Barry, telling them to pray. You know, something's wrong with Alan, and they're thinking that I need to be taken to the hospital. They're thinking I need to be taken somewhere to get my stomach pumped or seen about or something, because I'm not right. And Brother Barry spoke up and said, no, just trust in God. Just put your faith and trust in God. And Mama did. I just don't know if I could do that, man. You know, like already lost a child, and you feel like you're about to lose another one. But that's how strong. I don't know if y'all know my mom. She's a woman of God, woman of faith. She put her trust and faith in God when everything else was telling her, no, you need to send him. And I want to tell you that saved my life, because I woke up the next day in a jail cell, and when everything sort of started coming back to me, that was God. If Mama would have taken me to the hospital and got my stomach pumped out, I'd been like, Mama saved me. You know, the circumstances saved me. There's no doubt in my mind, Jesus Christ saved me that day. I should have been dead. And so when I woke up and I realized exactly what happened and that I'm still alive, and I knew that God was real, I started opening up my Bible. I started reading, trying to find out about this God. Why Jesus Christ had to die on the cross for my sins. I hadn't even done any of that stuff. I knew Jesus Christ, I knew God, but that was about it. And so I really started learning about it and reading Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Myers and Spiritual Warfare. I know I read a book on that, and it's just all this stuff just started popping out to me because I put him in my heart. I thank you, Jesus Christ, for saving me. Thank you for the events that led up to it to save me. Thank you for not letting me go to the hospital. You knew I needed to see that, and that's exactly what I needed. And from that moment forward, I mean, that's all, my eyes are on Jesus Christ. It still is to this day, man. And I'm gonna share, I know I'm running a little time, but I want to share this one story that when I got out of jail, I got into the home of grace. Y'all know that it's faith-based. It was 3 months. I mean, it was amazing. I spent time with God, with brotherly love, and just, it was an amazing experience. And when I got out of that place, I didn't have a job, but I was entered into drug court. Like, I had all this restitution and money I had to pay back, but I didn't have a job. I was scared the whole 3 months I was there that nobody would hire me. A manager that just embezzled all this money from people, who would want to hire me? And the whole 3 months, I'm sitting there worried about it. The guys are praying with me, you know, and my friends, my brothers, and they're just saying, put your trust and faith in God, put your trust and faith in God. And I did. As soon as I got out of that place, I started looking for a job, and it wasn't a week later I got hired at Richardson's Mold. And it was a little factory place making plastic moldings. But I got that job, and I realized, and I had a month to pay $900. I had no money, nothing to my name. I didn't even have a job at the time. But then I graduated February the 2nd. Well, by March, I had to pay $900, or I was going restitution center. So I got that job a week later, and I'm calculating what I make. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. There's no way. And I just keep praying and like, God, just help me. I didn't want to, ask my family for money or anything like that, because I stole from them for years. And so I just wanted to put my trust and faith in God, and I did. And I got another job on the side. And that job, I made about $700 in 1 week, or a week and a half. And I was so ecstatic. Like, it was like leading up to like the last week I had, and then I had that money in my hand, going up to to pay the circuit clerk my money. And I'm just so happy. I'm like praising God the whole way. Like, I got this money in my hand, I'm driving in a truck, and I'm going up there, thanking him, just singing praises to his name. And I park my car, and I walk up into the building. And as I'm walking there, I'm saying like scriptures in my mind that I've memorized. And as I'm walking, it's a long call because I'm parked on the opposite end. And as I'm walking, it's a long call all the way to it, and there's these two guys standing on opposite sides, and they're talking. And at first, I didn't know what they were talking about. So I start walking, and as I get closer, I notice. But see, I'm singing praises to God right now, like I'm thanking Him. And I noticed them talk about my sister's murder, and this was years later. I mean, like 2000. This was just 3 years ago, and they're sitting there talking about my sister's murder, the events happened, and what happened to her, and what the guy that murdered her did, and they're just talking about it. They didn't know it was me. That's the devil, man, trying to take my joy away from me. And when I was walking, it didn't even click into my head. Like, I heard it. But I'm telling you, man, I was praising His name and thanking Him. He was. So I go and I pay for it, and I turn around and walk back out, and they're still doing it. And it still doesn't register with me. And I walk out. I'm going to tell you, before, I couldn't even say her name. Like, when my family said her name, or anybody talked about her, I use that as an excuse to, oh, wait a second, self-pity. Let me do drugs. Let me get mad at the world and all this kind of stuff. But at that moment, that's why it's so important to me, because at that moment it showed me Jesus Christ is where it's at. And that's you put your eyes on Him, and no matter what goes on in your life, you'll be able to conquer it. That's right. I walked out of that place, got in my car, and it hit me like a ton of bricks what just happened. I didn't cry, I didn't have self-pity, I praised God. I'm like, God, I used to, like that right there would have sent me on a 4-month binge of just drug and alcohol. And all I can do is just praise His name, man. And that's one of the most, and I still hold on to that, and I still think about it. And there's other times in my life where God has shown His grace and His love and His mercy to me. And I just want to let y'all know, if y'all are going through anything, you can always reach out to me, or Brother Barry, anybody in this room, I'm sure. But the most important thing is Jesus Christ. If you don't have a firm foundation relationship with Him, it'll only last for a season. That's it. I just want to thank y'all for having me. That's all I got. I'm going to stop there before I shake myself to death.